I actually grew up in California and went to Antioch in Ohio for my bachelor's degree, and that was in the early 70s when Antioch actually was the only college I could find that had an environmental studies program. I mean, now there's so many of them, but that was one of the few. So that I found that very interesting. Then I worked for the Forest Service in California. I did sort of major in botany and ecology and doing botanical surveys in rangeland areas in California. Did my master's degree at UC Berkeley in rangeland management, and then my PhD at Davis in ecology. And at that time, then I did my PhD research in Nigeria and lived in Nigeria for 9 years, looking at farmers' practices in restoring the forest that often don't cultivate for long periods of time because the tropical soils can't handle that. And the farmers had many practices of restoring the forest overstory even during the time that they were cultivating. I was working for one of the Green Revolution institutions, International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, where they at that time were recommending tree pushers and tractors to absolutely clear all the trees and not let a tree come back. So we had a nice comparison between the two of them, and despite the millions of dollars they spent on their mechanical equipment, at the end of the period it was decided that the farmers' practices were actually better. And then I lived in Benin for 6 years, the country next door, the French-speaking country, and then was in Kenya for 11 years. I was running a nonprofit organization that was linked to the United Nations Environment Program. But we also made a transition to being much more engaged locally in the environmental issues in Kenya. We worked on forest certification and sustainable agriculture certification. And then, since my own research is in pollination, which I continue to do, and I was a faculty member at the University of Nairobi carrying out pollination research, I was hired by the United Nations to coordinate an international initiative on pollination, which I did for, say, about 7 years, based in Rome, but working internationally in Brazil, Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, India, Pakistan, and Nepal. And then I transitioned over to leading an initiative at the United Nations on agroecology. We started a symposium, now it's part of the program of work of FAO. I left there about a year after we'd started this initiative, but they've continued to kind of recycle me as a retiree to consult on the agroecology initiative. And right now I'm consulting to FAO on their biodiversity mainstreaming. So to bring in biodiversity considerations into agriculture, into crops, livestock, but also fisheries and forestry, and to really come to more of an understanding of how biodiversity underpins all of that. And that's biodiversity mainstreaming then means, what do we do on a policy level? Which is still an open question. We don't have many good policies on doing this, so we really need to ferret out and help to figure out how we can advise countries and help them move closer to that. And my course that I'm developing here at Prescott is going to intersect a lot with this biodiversity mainstreaming, so that the students can learn from it and I can learn from the students, and I'm interested that the students here are very much involved in their own bioregions. How is that relevant, not just in developing countries, but in the US?